Once upon a time, in a far-away village, lived Akodo and his wife, Nnuego. Akodo and his wife had just gotten married and were expecting their first child, who wasted no time to arrive. On a cold, rainy night, Nnuego was delivered of a beautiful baby girl. At first, Akodo was not happy that the child was a girl, but immediately he held her in his arms, he fell in love with her, for she was a very beautiful child, fair-skinned like her mother and with a pointed nose. She smiled at him and his heart melted. He looked at her and called her Ifenkili, because she was indeed a beauty to behold. Days rolled into weeks, and weeks into months, and months turned into years, and Ifenkili grew. She blossomed like a beautiful flower in the spring, captivating everyone who comes across her with her beauty. In fact, one could say she was the most beautiful young girl in her village. Her beauty was matchless, and everybody loved her. For besides her beauty, Ifenkili was a very good-natured and hard-working girl, always smiling and singing, very respectful and always ready to render help to anyone in need of it. As the years went by, Akodo and his wife were unable to have another child. Finally, they decided to give up trying and give their daughter Ifenkili all the love they could and make sure she is comfortable and marries into a well-to-do family. By the time she approached 5 years, men already started coming for her hand in marriage on behalf of their sons, and Ifenkili is betrothed to marry Ago, the son of the great Ike, when she turns 16. Ago at that time was already 10 years old and wasted no time to brag to anyone who cared to listen that he was going to marry Ifenkili. He was so proud of his latest achievement. As Ifenkili grew, she was surrounded by a lot of friends, as every girl wanted to associate herself with her. Among all her friends was Chiama, who is her closest friend. In fact, Chiama was more like a sister to her than a friend, for they were always together and did everything together. Sometimes they would even sleep in each other's house, so that they would often do their chores together. They did their chores together in one person's house and then moved to the other person's house to do the chores there too. The girls were inseparable, and their bond seemed unbreakable. Ifenkili was happy with her life. Her life was perfect. She had parents who loved her and never failed to shower her with gifts. She had a friend so close she never felt the loneliness of being an only child. And she already had a husband from a well-renowned family. However, unknown to her, her joy was never meant to last. Just as one attracted friends, one is also bound to attract enemies. In the same light, Ifenkili was not left without enemies. On the top of the list of her enemies was Chiege. Chiege was extremely jealous of Ifenkili and would do anything to see her fall. Chiege was a somewhat robust young girl who lacked the kind of beauty Ifenkili possessed. She hated Ifenkili with all her might and never failed to show her how much she hated her. She would wait for Ifenkili on the path leading to the village from the stream and push her water pot down, pour her dirty water, and even beat her up sometimes for no reason. Chiege was a bully, and everybody in the village knew she picked on Ifenkili. She was that naughty girl parents usually warned their daughters to avoid. One fateful day, something very bad happened. Ifenkili had gone to the stream alone to fetch water because she could not find Chiama and her mother needed a pot of water to prepare the evening meal. On her way home, just on the lonely path, she was attacked by an unknown young man who had his face covered in a mask. She tried to fight him, but he was strong. He easily overpowered her and carried the screaming Ifenkili into the bush. He beat her and raped her, mercilessly taking away her innocence. Ifenkili was shattered. She felt that her life was over, for no man would marry a deflowered girl. In fact, it was a taboo and a shame to the family for a maiden to be found disvirgined on the night of her marriage. The masked man afterwards left her in the bush and ran away. She just lay there in pain and did not know what to do. As the darkness drew nearer, she got up, dusted herself, and went home to tell her mother what happened. Her mother cried bitterly and her father paced endlessly. No one ate that night. It was as if someone had died. A thick air of silence settled upon the household of Akodo. For Ifenkili's mother, no one could convince her that the troublesome Chiege did not have a hand in what happened to her daughter. She knew it was Chiege's handwork because Chiege hated her daughter so much and always did evil things to her. But this was the height of it all, and she would not keep quiet this time around. For Ifenkili, nothing mattered anymore. She hid herself in shame and cried all day, not allowing anyone except her best friend, Chiama, to see her. The two girls would hold each other and cry together. Ago, her betrothed, after trying severally to see her, fell sick. He missed his Ifenkili and wanted to be there to console her, but she would not let him see her. He had already made up his mind that nothing would stop him from marrying his Ifenkili. The news about Ifenkili spread like wildfire in the Hamatan, so that the family of her husband-to-be, Ago, decided that their son would no longer marry her. Ago, on hearing this, made it clear to them that he was going to marry Ifenkili no matter what. Tongues started wagging, and Ifenkili became a laughingstock among her peers. However, in life, no evil deed goes unpunished. One morning, while Chiege was sweeping her father's compound, some guards from the king's palace stormed in and carried her away, leaving her mother running and shouting behind them. King Ahanna was a wise king. His wisdom was unmatched, and he was also known to be a fair ruler. He looked as stern as a warrior, but deep down he had a kind heart. The news of what happened to Ifenkili finally reached his ears through Nnoego, Ifenkili's mother, who swore that she knew for sure that the notorious Chiege was responsible for the ugly incident. She told him all that had transpired between the two girls in the past, and after hearing these things, the king asked that Chiege be brought to the palace. When Chiege was brought before the king asked her if she had a hand in what happened to Ifenkili. Chiege denied having anything to do with the incident. She admitted to targeting and bullying her in the past, but she swore she did not plot for her to be raped. King Ahanna, being a man who was slow to judge, decided that the best thing to do is to swear an oath before the gods. Chiege quickly accepted the challenge, for she believed that she had nothing to fear. Aju, the chief priest, was summoned immediately, and Chiege was made to take the oaths. She stepped forward, and Aju gave her the ofo, which was a symbol of truth and justice, and before the king and the entire village, she swore that if she had a hand in what happened to Ifenkili, death would visit her and her household. But if not, death would begin to take from whoever did it until they confessed. The oath was sealed with the blood of a white fowl. There was tension in the village as the crowd dispersed. Instead of going about their various activities, everyone went home to wait for the worst to happen. Chiege's mother cried uncontrollably for the rest of the day, while her father blamed her endlessly, for he had on different occasions advised her to desist from bullying weaker people, especially Ifenkili. They waited and waited, yet nothing happened that day. At midnight, a woman ran out shouting, waking the entire village with her shouts for help. The village awakened immediately, every man and woman leaving their huts to see what was happening. Behold, it was Akweke, Chiama's mother. She was crying and shouting at the top of her voice. Her only son was dying. He was convulsing and had foam coming out of his mouth. In no time, the entire village had gathered around their huts to see what was happening. By the time they reached there, the boy was dead. The villagers started to shout and murmur. Akweke threw herself on the ground and wailed to the disgust of all present. While all this was happening, Chiama, Ifenkili's best friend, was already in tears and fearing for her own life. She ran out of the hut and ran straight to the chief priest Aju, to whom she confessed the evil she had done. The whole village had believed that the troublesome Chiege had done it. Nothing prepared them for what was unfolding before them. One would never have believed or guessed that the innocent-looking Chioma, Ifenkili's best friend, could conceive such wickedness and perpetrated it with the help of her now dead brother Ikenna, who secretly admired Ifenkili but knew he was never going to have her since she belonged to another already. Chioma, despite showing love towards Ifenkili, secretly envied her because everybody loved her and her name was constantly on the lips of everyone in the village, including her own parents. Meanwhile, no one ever took notice of her. The most painful thing to Chioma is the fact that Ifenkili was going to marry Ago, the catchiest young man in the village, while she had no suitors yet. Her jealousy led her to plot with her brother to rape Ifenkili, so that no man, including Ago, would have her. The villagers were furious at the betrayal and insisted that Chioma must leave the village. King Ahanna decided that Chioma and her family would be banished for life and must never set foot in the village again, and they would from that moment be referred to as Osu, which means outcast. Ifenkili cried for many days when she heard that it was her best friend who had planned evil against her. She was so sad and heartbroken. She felt betrayed and swore she would never forgive Chioma. Meanwhile, Ifenkili, being a very good-natured girl, apologized to Chiege for wrongly accusing her. The two girls have remained friends till today, but Ifenkili never brought anyone too close to her again, for as they say, once bitten, twice shy. And now, my children, this is the end of my story. So, Nne, what later became of Ifenkili and Chiege? One of the children asked. Agu maintained that he would marry Ifenkili, Nne replied. And they both got married and now have children and grandchildren. Chiege, on the other hand, turned a new leaf as she realized that it did not pay to be known as a troublesome person. She also got married to a fine man and is seated under the beautiful gaze of the moon, telling her great-grandchildren a fine story. Hey! The children replied with excitement as they realized that their own Nne is the formerly troublesome Chiege. They hugged her and thanked her for sharing her story with them. They all went back to their mother's huts, happy, for they had learned a lot of lessons that night. Once upon a time, in a small village situated in the eastern parts of Nigeria, bordered by the legendary Ogodo forest, lived a young man called Odum. Blessed with striking looks and irresistible charm, Odum was the object of admiration for many young women in the village. Yet, his reputation extended far beyond admiration. Odum's good looks and sugar-coated tongue easily won him the heart of any young maiden that tickled his fancy. In fact, it is safe to say that Odum loved women. The moment he sighted any beautiful woman, his first instinct was to figure out a plan to lure her into bed with him. And the maidens, unable to resist his charm, always fell into his trap, even though the whole village was aware of his insatiable appetite for women. In that same village also lived a pretty girl named Ulie. Ulie was a very good-natured and shy, innocent girl who had always had a crush on Odum, but her shyness never allowed her to be able to express herself around him. Besides, everyone knew he was a flirt. Ulie was so shy that anytime she saw him coming, she would run away and hide herself. Odum, being a champion in women affairs, recognized that Ulie had feelings for him. It was not new to him to discover that a maiden had feelings for him, but something about Ulie drew him to her. Perhaps it was her shyness or her innocence that intrigued him, but he knew for sure that he was going to have her. Odum started making plans to woo Ulie. He knew it would be quite a cumbersome task because she was quite different from the other maidens who were bold and easily threw themselves at him. One morning, Odum waited for Ulie at the path leading to the stream, for he knew that she would always go to the stream with her friends to fetch water. He hid himself on top of a tree, and as soon as the girls passed, he jumped down and followed them to the stream. The girls, oblivious of the person behind them, chattered and laughed on their way to the stream. For the first time, Odum nearly lost the courage to approach a woman and was about to turn around when one of the girls looked back and sighted him. Immediately, he was surrounded by the girls, except Ulie, who was already sweating just by the sight of him. Not left with much choice, he joined the girls and thrilled them with exciting stories and had them giggling all the way to the stream, all the while casting side looks at Ulie. After fetching the water, Odum finally offered to help Ulie carry her water. Reluctantly, she agreed and he carried her water pot, leaving the other girls grin with envy. When they got back to the village, every girl went her way, but Odum insisted on following Ulie to her house. Ulie was excited to be close to Odum, but she dared not show it, so she just comported herself and let him charm her with his sweet stories. She was sad to see him go, but was hopeful that she would see him again. The next day, Odum was there on the same path, waiting, and he waited again the day after. Soon, it became a routine. Her friends already knew Odum was courting her and teased her mercilessly, but they knew it was not going to last, as he was a chronic womanizer. Ulie started looking forward to going to the stream every morning because she knew that Odum was waiting for her. Their closeness began to grow, and they not only went to the stream together, they were everywhere together, except when Odum was working on his father's farm. Soon, the duo became the talk of the town, and the villagers were even surprised that Odum had decided to stick to one woman. He would buy her jewelries, beads, and other little gifts, hunt for bushmeat, and spend almost all his free time with her. Ulie fell hopelessly in love with him. However, Ulie's mother did not trust Odum and vehemently warned Ulie against her relationship with him. But as we all know, it is very difficult to give advice to a person in love. Ulie and Odum seemed so in love, and as time passed, the village came to accept their relationship. One day, Ulie became ill. Her mother tried to give her several herbs, but she did not get better. She kept throwing up every time she ate anything and was always tired. With the eyes of an experienced woman, Ifeyinwa, Ulie's mother, discovered that her daughter was pregnant. She was furious, and her father nearly disowned her for bringing shame upon their family. Ifeyinwa took her daughter and went to Odum's house to inform him and his parents about what had happened. But when they got there, Odum totally denied the responsibility of the pregnancy. His father was shocked, for they all knew that the only man they saw Ulie with was Odum. His father insisted that he was responsible and must marry Ulie. Odum started to panic. He was not ready to marry. He still wanted to enjoy life and be free to do what he liked. But this was beyond him. He had to marry Ulie. Without much celebration, Odum and Ulie became husband and wife. As soon as they got married, Odum's fascination with Ulie began to diminish. He would go out early and come back late at night, leaving the poor girl alone all day. He would scold her if she dared to complain, and did not even care for her when she was ill. Soon, she became unhappy. She went to her mother to complain, but her mother did not listen because she warned her about Odum, but she could not listen. Therefore, Ulie made up her mind to face the consequences of her decision. Meanwhile, somewhere in the heart of the lush and ancient forest Ogodo, where sunlight filtered through the trees and the whispers of leaves danced to the tune of the breeze, there dwelt an ancient creature, a mysterious snake known as Omaja. Omaja was no ordinary serpent. She was a 1,000-year-old snake who possessed a rare and wondrous gift bestowed upon her by the mystical forces of the forest. By day, Omaja would slither through the forest, her scales shimmering like precious gems. But as twilight descended upon the forest, she would shed her serpentine form and transform into an old man. Under this guise, she would go into the village with a cart filled with sparkling jewelries, which he sold at the village evening market. Omaja enjoyed going into the village and watching the simple lifestyle of the villagers. More, she enjoyed going as an old man, for nobody paid attention to a poor old man. It was in the market that the snake heard about Odum's escapades and the way he mistreats his pregnant wife. Omaja felt sorry for poor Ulie and decided to teach Odum a lesson. The next day, Omaja went into the village as usual, but this time she transformed into a very beautiful maiden. When she entered the market, the people were stunned, for they had never seen a person so beautiful, with hair so dark and skin so fair and so silky. They had no idea where she came from, and when they inquired, she told them that she was the daughter of the old man who sold jewelry. The villagers quickly accepted her, and almost every man wanted to buy jewelry. As expected, Odum heard the rumors of the most beautiful girl in town and came to see for himself. Alas, she was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen in his life, and there and then he swore that she was going to be his. Omaja had the unique ability to read minds. So the first day she saw Odum and he approached her, she already knew his thoughts. She was happy that her plans were falling in place. Odum immediately started wooing Omaja, who introduced herself to him as Oledo. He totally abandoned his wife Ulie and started secretly courting Omaja. He would spend all his money recklessly on her, buying her expensive gifts, all in a bid to win her affection. But Omaja, ever the cunning serpent, saw through his facade. Knowing that his intentions were as shallow as his own reflection, she was on a mission, and so she played along with his advances, leading him deeper into her web of deception with each passing day. One day, she told Odum that she heard rumors that he had a wife who was heavily pregnant. Odum looked into her eyes and denied it blatantly. This infuriated Omaja, and her resolve to deal with him became stronger. After their meeting that evening in their secret place at the entrance of the forest where they usually met, Omaja put a spell on him and lured him deeper into the heart of the forest. When she got to the spot where she usually transformed, before his eyes, she transformed into a very large, beautiful serpent. When Odum saw this, he screamed in shock. He could not move. It was as if his feet were glued to the ground. He shivered in fear as he realized the beautiful Oledo was indeed a mighty serpent. Terrified and entranced in equal measures, Odum watched as Omaja coiled herself around him, her eyes blazing with fire as she spoke in a voice that echoed through the forest. "Quiet!" she shrieked. "You have been deceived by your own desires, Odum. But now you shall learn the true cost of your actions." She coiled herself tighter around him. Odum began to beg for mercy. He swore he would never treat women as nothing ever again and become a better man. As he begged earnestly in tears, Omaja's heart softened, and so did her grip on him. She looked straight into his mind and saw that he was filled with remorse and his words sincere. She released him and instructed him to never speak about their encounter to anyone. She made it clear to him that day that the moment he tells anyone about her, is the day he dies. Odum solemnly swore to take their secret to the grave. That night, Odum went home a different man. He devoted his time to taking care of his wife and unborn child, and never looked at any woman again. Once again, the villagers were surprised at his new change of character, but this time they hoped it was for the better. The old man who sold jewelries in the village evening market stopped coming. Some of the villagers say that he now goes to sell in the neighboring village, as they had seen him on several occasions. Ulie, on the other hand, was very happy with her husband's new character and kept thanking the gods for bringing him back to her. She only hoped his change was for the good. Soon after, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, and Odum named her Eily. The couple had 4 more children, and they all lived together happily ever after. Once upon a time, in the peaceful, beautiful kingdom of Umuahia, known for its rich culture and traditions, lived Ekene, a beautiful young maiden, quiet, humble, and very kind to everyone she met. She was the daughter of Ago, the village blacksmith, a humble but well-respected position. Ekene was often held up as an example by parents to their daughters. Her beauty was more than skin deep. It radiated through her gentle nature and genuine kindness. In the same kingdom was Prince Obinna, the king's handsome and wise son. He was loved and respected by all. He possessed the kind heart and wisdom of his father. And so it happened that the prince needed a wife and had decided to select one of the beautiful maidens in the village. However, as he searched for a wife, he knew that the woman he would choose would not only be his partner, but also the future queen. Therefore, she needed to embody qualities that would make her a great leader. The maidens of the village were desperate to catch the prince's attention, often throwing themselves at him. The prince usually took a walk through the village every evening. The maidens would dress up in their best outfits and flaunt themselves before the prince. Among them was Adaeze, the stunning daughter of Chief Ako, a wealthy and influential member of the king's cabinet. Adaeze's beauty, as far as she was concerned, was unmatched. She carried herself with pride and liked to dress herself up as a princess. The young men vied for her attention, but she considered herself above them and insulted anyone who dared approach her. She had her eyes on the prince and bragged to her friends that she would make the prince fall in love with her and he would never be able to take his eyes off her. Her beauty made her proud and rude. She was used to getting her way with everything. Some of the maidens would go as far as doing her chores just to be in her good graces. Adaeze was convinced that she was destined to be the future queen of Umuahia. Prince Obinna became drawn to Adaeze because of her beauty. However, her rude behavior quickly put him off. One day, While he was taking a walk through the village with her, a young maiden walked past them, only greeting the prince as she passed. Adaeze did not take it well. She dragged the maiden back and commanded her to kneel. The maiden, out of fear, quickly went down on her knees. Adaeze gave her a mean look. "Are you too blind to see me? Or is this how you will behave when I become the queen? You disrespectful thing. Now, greet." The maiden, shaken with fear, greeted Adaeze. And without responding, Adaeze took the prince's hand and they continued their journey. All the while, the prince watched in surprise. He did not expect someone so beautiful would behave in such a disgusting manner. Since that day, he dismissed the thoughts of marrying Adaeze. He realized that beauty alone was not enough for the future queen of Umuahia. She also needed character. One early morning, the prince could not sleep. He felt very restless, and so he decided to take a walk and clear his head. It was just before the break of dawn, so he knew he would not meet many people on the way, maybe except the hunters. He needed the peace and quiet. He needed to walk without the maidens pestering him. As he walked through the village, he saw a figure coming towards him from the opposite direction. The figure did not look like a hunter. As he strained his eyes to see who it was, the person came closer. It was a young maiden. He wondered where a young maiden would be going this early morning. When she came closer to him, she greeted him politely. Her quiet nature and gentle smile captivated him. Unlike the other maidens, she did not seek his attention aggressively. Intrigued by her humility and grace, and the fact that it was early to be out, Prince Obinna engaged her in a conversation. "What is a beautiful maiden doing up by this time of the day?" he inquired. "I am running an errand for my father, my prince," she replied. "This early?" he asked with a frown. "Who is your father?" "My father is Ago, the village blacksmith. He is ill and he needs to deliver these knives to Mazi Okoro, the palm wine tapper. Mazi Okoro needs it to tap wine early this morning. I'm all that my father has. Please, don't see him as a bad person," she said, her voice pleading with the prince. "All right," the prince replied. "In that case, let me escort you." "Ah, don't worry, my prince. I would not disturb wherever it is you are heading to. I'll be very quick," she replied. "No, it's no bother. I'm just taking a walk with no particular place in mind. Meanwhile, what is your name?" "My name is Ekene," she replied. And so the prince escorted Ekene to deliver the knives and escorted her back home. They talked about a lot of things on their way. Ekene was so full of wisdom. Her laughter was like music to his ears. It could make you actually smile. Over the next few days, the prince could not get Ekene out of his mind. Her warm smile and gentle manner left a deep impression on him. He had gone into the village on different occasions, hoping to meet her again, but he never saw her. He tried going out early in the morning, hoping to see her, but she did not show up. He decided to speak to the king about Ekene. The king, smiling to himself, acknowledged that everyone knew and respected Ekene for her virtues. This delighted Prince Obinna. He decided to take the bull by the horn and visit Ekene at home. He met Ekene's father and quickly made his intentions known to Ago. Ago called his daughter. When Ekene came in, she was surprised to meet the prince in her father's house. Ago told his daughter why the prince was at their place. Ekene was shocked that the prince would even consider having her. Truthfully, since the day she encountered him, she had been thinking about him a lot. She spent a lot of days and time daydreaming. She never envisioned that the prince would even look at her, not to talk of wanting to court her. Shyly, Ekene accepted to court Prince Obinna, making him the happiest man in the village. As the days passed, their bond grew stronger and they began to love each other more with each day that passed. The news of the prince's interest in Ekene spread quickly through the village. Adaeze was furious. How could the prince choose Ekene over her? Driven by pride, jealousy, and wickedness, Adaeze resolved that if she could not have the prince, then no one would. She plotted with her friends, who had become her servants, to sabotage Ekene. The forest of Umuahia was a place no one dared to enter. Once the sun set, the spirits of the forest were known to roam over the forest. It was in this forest that the village usually dumped any person who died an abominable death. And so the forest is said to be haunted. Anyone who stays in the forest for any reason after sundown is never seen again. Adaeze planned with the maidens to lure Ekene to the forest so that she would just disappear forever without a trace. One day, Ekene was on her way to the river to fetch water. Suddenly, a girl ran up to the bush in tears, pleading with Ekene to help her. "Please help me. My sister is injured in the bush. She needs help. Help me, please." Moved with pity, Ekene quickly followed the girl into the bush. Unknown to her, it was a trap. When she entered the bush, she saw Adaeze standing there. She became confused. What is going on here? Adaeze gave a wicked laugh. "Look at you, pathetic, ugly-looking thing." She looked Ekene from head to toe. "So you are the thing my prince left me for." Ekene, still looking perplexed. "Adaeze, I did not force the prince to come after me. He acted on his own accord. He is a man, not an object to be owned. I don't care to listen to your useless sermon. I want you to know that the prince is mine, and I will take down anyone who stands in my way." Before Ekene could utter a word, she felt a sharp pain at the back of her head. She held her head and screamed, and then fell to the ground. Her world went black. The girls carried the unconscious Ekene and dumped her in the Umuahia forest. They had the perfect plan. Before Ekene would regain consciousness, it would be sundown, and the spirits of the forest would finish the job they had started. When Ekene regained consciousness, she looked around her, trying to remember what happened. And then she remembered. She quickly jumped to her feet, but her head hurt badly. She looked around her and suddenly realized where she was. Her eyes filled with tears. She prayed in her heart that it was not sundown yet. She started trying to find her way out of the forest, but she could not. Instead, she wandered deeper into the forest. She got tired and sat down to rest. She thought about her father. His heart would not bear it if anything happened to her. And then she thought about Prince Obinna, the love of her life, wondering what he would be going through. She summoned courage and kept moving. She walked in circles for a long time. Just as she was about to give up and accept her fate, she saw an old woman with an heavy load on her head. She looked with fear as the old woman approached her. "My daughter," the old woman said, "please help me. I am lost and cannot find my way." Ekene, her heart relaxed, moved closer to the old woman. "Mama, where are you going?" "I am on my way to Umuahia," the old woman replied. "I wandered into this forest and I cannot find my way back." Ekene was moved with pity. She tried to help the old woman bring down her load. "Let me bring down this load from your head. It looks too heavy for you." "Thank you, my daughter," the old woman replied as she let Ekene take her load. "Do you know the way?" the woman asked. "No, Mama," Ekene replied. "I am also lost here, but we will find the way. And we need to find it before it's sundown. I have heard a lot of stories about this forest. It is really dangerous when the sun goes down." "If that's the case, then you must leave me behind and hurry. I am old and I will only slow you down," the old woman said, a sad look on her face. Ekene looked at her. "I cannot leave you behind. I believe there is someone waiting to see you, and my mind will never be at peace. If it be the will of the gods, then we will both make it out alive." She carried the old woman's load, and their journey began. As they walked through the forest, the old woman asked her how she got lost in the forest. And then she told her how the maidens had plotted to take her life out of jealousy. The old woman was moved with pity for her. As they walked, the sun started going down gradually. As the sun began to set, the old woman looked at Ekene. "My daughter, the sun is going down. I think you should leave me behind. I am too slow to make this journey. I am getting tired already." "Mama," she replied, "I cannot leave you here. It is too dangerous. Let us rest for a bit so that you can regain your strength. We will live here together. My father is waiting for me. My love is also waiting for me. I am also sure that they will be looking for me right now. Have faith, Mama. We will make it." "Thank you, my daughter," the old woman replied, a warm smile on her face. "Let us rest then." They sat down at the foot of a big tree to rest. Immediately her back touched the tree. Ekene fell into a deep sleep. Back in the village, Prince Obinna was distraught. His love was still missing. He had waited for her at their usual spot that afternoon, but she did not show up. He went to her father's house, but she was not there. He checked the stream, but no one had seen her. The king had sent out search parties to look for her, but she was still nowhere to be found. Ago, her father, could not be consoled. Ekene was all that he had left in the world. The whole village had heard about the disappearance of Ekene, and everyone was looking for her. Adaeze knew the prince was grieving, and so she saw it as an opportunity to move closer to the prince. She went to the palace under the guise of consoling him, feigning worry. But Prince Obinna did not give her any attention. Adaeze laughed in her mind. She knew the prince would never find Ekene, so he would have no choice but to fall right into her arms. When the king saw that things were getting out of hand, he requested the presence of the chief priest. Perhaps, with his wisdom and the guidance of the gods, they would be able to give them a clue as to what was going on. When the chief priest came, he stood before the king. "Long live your majesty. What troubles the king and his household so?" "The wise one of Umuahia, the eyes and mouthpiece of the gods. There is problem," the king replied. The chief priest laughed. "My king, someone has dug a pit. A great wickedness has been done against the innocent. But do not worry, she will return, and the perpetrator must be made to dance to the music." "Wise one, you speak in riddles. Tell us exactly what happened so that we can know what to do." "My king, the great ruler of Umuahia, the only thing we can do is wait. The truth will soon be revealed." The prince paced anxiously. Even Ago, the blacksmith, was also present in the palace with the royal family. The activities in the village stopped. Everyone was waiting to know what was going to happen, just as the chief priest said. Adaeze, on hearing what the chief priest said, began to panic. She feared that her secret will be exposed, but she could not run from the palace. She would be a suspect if she made any wrong move. But she could also pray that Ekene would die in the forest, because it would spell doom for her if she came out alive. But then, she had nothing to fear. It was already dark. She would be dead by now. Nobody makes it out of the Umuahia forest past sundown. Back in the forest, as Ekene slept, she had a dream. The old woman stood and transformed into a mighty creature, so dark she could not understand. The creature stood before her, her eyes shining with fire. "Who are you?" Ekene asked in fear. "Do not fear, my child. I am Ikuku, the spirit that guides the forest. I have tested you, and I have seen how pure your heart is, bearing no evil against anyone, and still willing to help even in the face of danger. Your kindness and selflessness has saved you. As Ekene watched in shock, the creature plucked a leaf and gave it to her. Take this leaf, chew on it, and everything will be made clear. Follow the paths you see and do not look back. And then the creature vanished. Immediately, Ekene woke up with a start. Her heart was beating so fast. The dream had felt so real. It was getting dark already. She looked around her. The old woman was gone. Her load was gone too. Fear gripped her. The dream was real. She had just had an encounter with the controller of the forest spirits, disguised as an old woman. Her hands were tightly closed, forming a fist. She looked at her hand and opened it. There was a leaf placed on her palm. She remembered the dream. Quickly, she put the leaf in her mouth and began to chew. Then something strange happened. A small path mysteriously appeared before her. She could swear it was not there before. Then she heard the voice in her head. Follow the path and do not look back. Remembering the dream, Ekene quickly followed the path, walking as fast as she could. She had walked for a long time. Then she started hearing voices of people talking from afar. She knew she was getting close to the village. She followed the voices, and soon she could see the lights. It was a group of men. They looked like guards from the king's palace. It was dark, but she knew where she was. She had come out of the forest into the bushes. She was close to the village now. One of the men noticed her movements and came closer, bringing his light to her face. "It's her!" he shouted in delight. The other men gathered to confirm it was her. Lo and behold, it was truly her. The men, without wasting time, escorted her to the palace where everyone was waiting. Immediately she walked into the palace. Everyone started jubilating. The prince quickly went and embraced her. "Thank the gods you are safe." "What happened?" Ekene greeted the prince and then went and greeted the king. She looked around and saw her father. He had tears in his eyes. She went to him. "Do not cry, Papa. Your daughter is here now." When Adaeze saw Ekene, she was shocked. She could not believe it was possible to leave the forest alive. She made to quietly leave the palace, but the chief priest's voice stopped her in her tracks. The wicked runs when no man is chasing him. "Adaeze, daughter of Ako, where are you going to?" Adaeze became confused. She did not know what to do. Again, she tried to run. The king commanded the guards to seize her. The king looked at Ekene. "Tell us what happened." And then Ekene sat and narrated everything that happened, including how the queen of the forest had saved her. The people were marveled when they heard her story. Indeed, it paid to be good, they said to themselves. The king was disappointed to hear that a maiden would plot to kill another, all because of jealousy. Not minding whose daughter she was, he decreed that Adaeze must be punished so that it will serve as an example to all the maidens and everyone in the village. Adaeze, he said, when you want to dig a pit for your enemy, make sure it is not too deep, because you might just be the one to fall into that pit. Now, you will be sent into the evil forest, just as you did to Ekene. If you survive, then the gods be praised. But if not, then you will learn and feel the gravity of what you have done. Adaeze fell before the king, crying bitterly, pleading for mercy and forgiveness. Ekene was moved with pity for Adaeze. She went and knelt before the king. My king, the great ruler of Umuahia, please temper justice with mercy. Do not send her to the evil forest. I do not wish for her to die. Please, my king. The king and everyone present were surprised. They could not believe that after everything that they did to her, she was still pleading on her behalf. The king, moved by Ekene's plea, decided to be lenient with his judgment. And so, Adaeze was made an outcast, banished from the village forever, as she was a bad influence and example to the other maidens. Adaeze cried bitterly, pleading with Ekene to talk to the king again. The king could see through Adaeze. The girl was unrepentant. He commanded the guards to take her away. Once again, Ekene and the prince were reunited, and their bond continued to wax stronger. A few months later, they got married. Their marriage was the talk of the town. People came from far and wide to grace the occasion, and the couple afterwards lived together happily ever after. The story of Ekene continued to spread through the villages. Mothers even used the story to teach their children the importance of kindness, humility, and selflessness. Adaeze left the village in shame, never to be seen again.